Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. This is a conservative leaning podcast. I'm a Republican, a conservative, not MAGA. I'm a Federalist. The nice things about being a Federalist is Democrats can be a Federalist too. Isn't that wonderful? It's just on that you believe in the structure and the workings of the Constitution and our laws. So it's some Federalists are considered to be independents. We're independent. We're a good idea is a good idea, which is true. A good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. I agree with that. But I don't believe in as much as being an independent. And I have crossed party lines. I have done it. Because a good idea is a good idea. But I'm not an independent. I don't try to pose myself as an independent. I'm a conservative. Today is May 22nd. This would be episode 77 in my series, starting from January of 2026. Actually, I've been doing shows since 2024. I want to thank everyone that has signed up in the last week. I appreciate it. It's a non-monetary channel. I don't throw a commercial in. I don't, in the middle of a talk, it breaks away. It might on some other platforms that I'm on. But my main platform is a YouTube. I tried to be as unbiased as I can be. But a lot of the thinking going on with the Democrats, I just can't be. There's very, very few good ideas coming out of the Democrats. And I look at a problem and want to see a solution. Not just, I blame this guy and stuff, come up with a solution. Instead of, all we're hearing from the Democrats is, Trump, billionaire, Trump this, Trump that, Trump. We got problems. And the problem, isn't just Trump. To you guys, it's just Trump. It's not a lack of leadership from your team, right? It can't be that, right? It has to be something else. Democrats are always, always the victim. So, not much in the sense of really stuff going on in the news. There's, of course, stuff going on in the news, but lots of talk. I would still say the hot button topic is the IRS settlement with Donald Trump. And a lot of people don't understand how the process works. And let's just stop for a second and say that President Trump, as a private citizen, all right, not in charge of the executive branch, had every right to sue the government. Now, for a suit to continue into a trial, a judge must find that there is merit to the case. the U.S. District Court in Florida found that she needed more information. I'll get her name in a second, Kathleen something, and I said it wasn't really. I really didn't care about her name or anything like that, nor what her. That was Kathleen Williams. Asked and demanded before going, making any type of decision. How did President Trump try to say that there was a adversarial or an adverse reaction caused by the IRS, which is run by the executive branch, and himself, since he could tell the executive branch exactly what to do to fix their problems. He could order policy changes, he could fire officials. So this became a problem for the courts to say, if you're suing them, but you have the magic wand to fix the problem, how can you sue? And it is on the look through. Just looking at it, you could ask that question. Because if she would just blanketly say, well, Citizen Trump can sue. Then there could be of course it would be precedent setting. But on the converse side of the issue would be, so as president, you lack the same rights as a citizen. Now, the idea of the government being held immunity under the sovereigns, you can't sue the king. I mean, that's how far it goes back. It really isn't the issue here. The issue would be that the president's claim on the suit was the fact that a employee of the IRS, be it a staff employee or a contracted employee, doesn't matter, they're still working for the IRS, released private citizen data on tax filings, which is, of course, not allowed. It's illegal. And the person, Charles Littlejohn, was convicted and sentenced to jail in 2024 for his actions that took place years before. My basic feeling on this would have been, if President Trump had filed a lawsuit while still being a private citizen, would it have mattered? Would that have made a difference then he became president? So what's the difference of him being president and he's suing as a private citizen? So this becomes an issue. And it is a valid issue. I'm not taking that away that, it's a valid issue. But would it stop the suit? No, I would. If I was this judge, I would have said, asked for how is the president dealing with the potential of a conflict of interest is really what it comes down to. And, if I was a legal person, which I am not, but I'm just going to use common sense here, would be that the procedures set forth by the IRS internal mechanism was not being changed. And that mechanism says that you have a general counsel and you have organizations inside the IRS that can act on the policies and procedures in force at the time of the suit. And I think where the court's dilemma was and would still be, if the president can't relinquish his authority over one branch of the executive branch, he just can't do it. His job is to be the top guy. You got to be. Usually, what happens if the president, wants to sue inside the government, he has the power to force the change, to force that administration, or that agency to comply to his demands. Now, Democrats calling it a slush fund. It's not a slush fund. It's the equivalent of an escrow fund. Equivalent of an escrow fund that a bank would use too. And this happens all the time in a civil case where there are multiple litigants and no one has decided yet who was more harmed and to what extent that weighs dollar-wise. So under the IRS rules, I think it's what, 7131? 7213. So 7213 and 7213. 6103 and 7213. And they collide with one another, but not collide, but they work in unison with one another. Where if you just followed the policies set forth by you, the president doesn't have to get involved because the policies are fine. And I'm not saying that there's any policy problems. I'm not saying there's any administration problems. I'm not saying there's any procedural problems. So I don't have to get involved other than being a litigant. And as such, I can sue. And using that as a basis, you could make the case that the president could be hands off in that area. Now, it's interesting is that if the case had gone to trial, if the judge said, gave it her blessings, and said, yes, there is merit to the suit, and the IRS told the Department of Justice, take it. Once that happens, the IRS loses its ability to settle. And that then falls through the Department of Justice Special Tax Division inside the IRS as a separate, under the guidance of the Department of Justice, and people don't understand that. There's a tax court where you do not have a jury. You just face a judge. And you don't have the same rights as a jury trial in a regular civil court. You understand that? So the minute it would have gone onto the docket and the Department of Justice then gets involved to say, all right, let's do this and, bring it on, the IRS loses the ability to have a say in the settlement process. That then is all part of the IRS. I would believe that if during the process Trump would have said, I'm dropping the case, the IRS is then cleared of any potential liability, and that would be the end of it. But since it did not go to the Department of Justice for trial, then the General Counsel, with the aid of the Department of Justice, can seek a remedy, a settlement. And the settlement would have to meet all the checkboxes set up under the IRS regulations and the Department of Justice benchmark for settlement. And then the IRS can tell the Department of Justice, we're going to settle this. That happens all the time. And the IRS General Counsel could say the hazard of litigation is greater. There could be a greater loss monetarily, but more importantly, precedent-wise, if we let this go to court. So we'll just settle it, and we don't have to change anything. And before that happens, there's always talk between the attorneys on if we were going to settle this. If we did this, what would be your terms for not taking this to a legal outcome? And the administration can say, yeah, we can't do that. That is beyond the scope of our authority. The only way I could get that authority is if the president gave me that authority. Now we're back to the chicken and egg. And you could understand then why why a judge might go, you got to tell me how this is going to work if I allow this suit to go forward. Because it would be very hard for people to say that the executive branch is not putting pressure on its own agency. I'm so sorry. I would say the same thing. That's not something where you could say that would never happen. I'm not saying that. We have a check and balance system for a reason. And I understand when that thing is unbalanced, then questions can be asked and should be asked. I think there was enough insulation, but again, this came up in January of 2026. And, for me, if you ever sued the government, if I were to sue the government today, maybe my grandchildren might be still around, but certainly my great-grandchildren would be there to, find out what happened. And in 5 months, we have a settlement. Yeah. Yeah. Republican or Democrat, my ears would... What? Hold it. The what's on the what now? What just happened? And I can understand people being upset, but they don't understand the process. There is a process there. Look it up. Can the president sue the federal government? Yes, he can. The bottom line is, yes, he can. Unprecedented. But a citizen can. Is the president of the United States a United States citizen? Yes. Okay. You can sue. Now you have to say, does the suit have merit? Just because you're allowed to sue doesn't mean, you could take it right up to the court and the court will listen to it. And that's exactly what Judge Williams had said. He goes, she's conflicted. And she needs more information before she would make that decision because it is precedent setting. So I get where she was going to. She wasn't saying that Donald Trump was ordering the IRS to settle with him or ordering him to, whatever. The suit itself is showing that that was not the case because if it were the other way around, he could just tell them, get your checkbook out and you're writing me a check. Or you're going to create this fund and I'm going to write it out. This is what I want. Correct my spelling and grammar. Make it so. But he did not do that. Now, what he did is he told them what he'd like. And we haven't heard the other things that he might have asked for that, they said we can't do. And that would be a problem for us. You could order us to do it, and then, I got to do it or resign at a good conscience. And again, no one knows that has not happened. I'm just saying, there's not enough information out there yet. And we can do what ifs and maybes and couldn't this have happened? We could do that all day. But where the dollar amount, and people go, what did he come up with, that? Well, there's a formula used by the IRS that gives a dollar hurt value. Look it up. Look it up. Yesterday's show, I had that all in there. And is based on a statute under 6103. That is what calculates the damage, the maximum damage. Could Trump have said, I want 1 penny? But what Trump was doing was, I want a fund for all the people that have been hurt by the weaponization of the Department of Justice and not even so much the IRS, but they were that was what caused the injury, was the IRS, and the IRS has already admitted to the fact that its office failed to secure that information. And where the Democrats are screaming is that this will be used as a slush fund. It's not a slush fund. It's not even a contingency fund. It's an escrow fund where litigants who say they are hurt by the actions of the Department of Justice unfairly and that they have a place to go to, and I don't know what the mechanism is for people to say, I got hurt by a weaponized Department of Justice. I don't know what the mechanisms are to say whether or not you are, because normally that would be done in a court of law. But since the records of the people's stuff that was sent out and people then were adversely affected and hurt, they'd have to somehow prove that that was not a real case against them, a real crime that the Department of Justice was looking into, or was it politically motivated? I don't know what the mechanism is for that. But I'm just saying that putting the money aside and setting up a compensation fund is no different than what was done with, weed killer companies, cigarette companies, and everything else, where through either a settlement or a loss of a court case, some arrangement was worked out. Happens every day. Happens every day. And for the Democrats to scream and, the unholiness of this, it's not unholy as far as a right that you have. And Donald Trump has already said, I'm putting it out there for people to, now they have an avenue. I have this agreement with the IRS. I have this agreement with the Department of Justice. And that money is set aside there, I think, till 2028, at which time, if there's no claims made against it, or if there's any money left, it goes back into the Treasury. So this isn't like chunk chunk and it's gone. Not yet. But it isn't, where, deposit that into my bank account tomorrow. And you have people saying that, people that were pardoned from January 6th because they were falsely prosecuted by the Department of Justice, a weaponized one, they're saying they shouldn't get that money. And that's not the way that's going to work, folks. Because from what I've been just reading about, that would be one of the people that can go for, Trump's old attorney, Cohen, can make the claim that he was bullied and strong-armed into lying for the Department of Justice to get Trump and or whatever, and he would be entitled to money. But I don't know what those mechanisms are. I just don't know what that is. But it's built on a sound, known, and used foundation and plan. So when you hear Democrats, we've never heard of such a thing, well, then you didn't practice law. Because that's done every day. So they're not being truthful. They can have their concerns, and I certainly have my concerns. The idea where part of the agreement was that the IRS cannot look back at their families in any past filing is to protect them from a Democrat coming back into power and going, no, I'm going to rip that thing open. I'm going to look through every single page. And they take what would have been normally being an unfound, questionable deduction as then fraud, tax fraud. You had your look. You had all the time in the world to look at everything. For whatever reason, you didn't. Now, that's it. There's no more bites of that apple. Doesn't mean that going forward and forever in perpetuity. It just means that from this date back, ain't no looking. Going forward, you could look as much as you want. And that is also done. In essence, what he's asking is a partial pardon, where he's not giving it to himself. The IRS, in an agreement, signs off on it. Now, you're saying, well, Congress can wipe that out. No, Congress can't act as a court. Now, Congress can, in their oversight powers, call not the IRS, because they don't control that. They can get in the Department of Justice and ask them, how'd you come to this settlement? And they can just turn around and go, yeah, we work hand in hand with the IRS. They become our client, and when our client tells us we're going to settle this, we settle it. Next question, please. Well, did the president tell anyone there that you must settle this and don't take it to trial? Because then I would have a problem with that. I'd have a problem with that. But if the president never said that, never told his lawyers, never told anyone else, which, again, we go back to Judge Williams, who said, you don't have to sue. You can just order them. Where's the merit in this case? There is no adversary. Show us where you needed to sue to effect justice or compensation. You don't have to sue. You could just go in and tell them. So I don't understand the case. So that's why this works in this manner. All right. Some breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard has stepped away from her position in the NIA or she has resigned. Not under pressure. Her husband is facing some serious health issues, and she wants to be there with him. Okay. Thank you for your services, and good luck and Godspeed. There you go. So that's today. We'll find. Okay. The other tidbit that will have the Democrats in arms. The House has rescheduled vote on the War Powers Act till June. So the House has gone on their vacation or whatever, their spring break or whatever they're doing, summer vacation, whatever you call it, and won't be back till June 2nd. And there was, Jeffries wanted a Wars Power legislation to rein in the president's war in Iran, which, of course, under the Wars Power Act, he's kind of hemmed into doing this. The Senate already has agreed to some type of Wars Power Act and telling the president, we need to know what's going on over there and what the plan is and how are we still in harm's way. And Jeffries said we had enough votes here to get a vote. And obviously they did not, because the House voted to wait till June. So Jeffries called the Republican cowards on not voting to limit the President Trump's war grip on Iran. The president won't be able to skirt this. And all this does is gives Iran more incentive to stall. And the Democrats know this. And this is what the Republicans should be coming out and saying, that they're stalling. We need to finish this now. And they're stalling it. And this is why in the next couple of weeks you're going to be hearing that type of talk coming from people. And you're going to be hearing some Democrats saying we need to finish this. I might not have agreed to do this, but now that we're there, finish it. And that's what Iran needs to hear. And the true cowards here are the Democrats. Now, we have a Wars Power Act, and that is the law. So the Democrats certainly, by all means, should exercise that law. You think they would do that with ICE and our immigration laws, right? You think they would do that, but they don't. This is why they're hypocrites. And I call them out. I don't call them out because they're exercising their right under the law. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is every one of our citizens' concerns. And I have no problem with people going, but that's the law. But don't quote me the law when you treat it like it's a cafeteria and you can pick and choose which ones you want to obey. Right? And this is where if I was anywhere in the RNC, I'd be pumping ads out tomorrow. We agree. We're going to ask the president about Iran and the war and everything else. We agree with that. We have no problem doing that. And we have done that. We did it in the Senate. We're going to do it here. But you guys haven't obeyed this law, this law, this law in these states, and you refuse. You refuse. You refuse to make legislations to protect our voting system. You refuse to follow the law to protect our borders and our citizens right here. You refuse to investigate fraud going on with our tax dollars. So please, when you speak about the law to me, speak about all of them. All right? And it's all right to challenge laws. You can do that. If you're so bent on changing them, go out and do it. There's a process to do it. But until you do it, you got to obey them. And I say the same thing to President Trump. We have laws. You can't sidestep them. Well, not for long. So I don't want to hear anyone, oh, you just all pro-Trump. No. The book shall tell us what to do. It's that simple. Well, Trump scored some huge victories this week, right? He settled his IRS case. He got Cassidy in Louisiana, who voted to impeach him, out. And he's supporting another Republican who will definitely win. And he got Massey in Kentucky out. And he's going to have another Republican go in there, and he will win. And all you hear from the Democrats is that Trump is losing his base support. Louisiana and Kentucky should be your barometer, fellas. Trump isn't losing any of his support. If anything, it's gaining. Trump is gaining support. And you know, Democrats, you know this to be the truth. And Schumer and Jeffries and Raskin, they're not helping your cause. You know who would help your cause? Listening to John Fetterman, senator from Pennsylvania, Democrat. You would be wise to listen to him and stop with these radicals. Another $90 million fraud. Did you see the defendant who jumped out the window of the court They caught him. Last name Omar. I wonder if any relation. I mean, the amount of fraud going on is astronomical. California, I mean, it's just coming to a head. And the Department of Justice has come out and said that this isn't the beginning of the end of our investigation in Minnesota or anywhere else. This is just starting. And the amount of fraud in Minnesota, that should be the barometer for the Republicans to go, I want you to look in all these states. And they should look in every state, because taking our, not mine, our tax dollars and it being used for something it was never intended to be used for is a fraud perpetrated against all of us. All of us. And that's money that could be used elsewhere or just saved us. So, some big wins for President Trump. I'm doing this for 40 seconds. This was supposed to be a 20-minute show today. Mamdani, right? Out of New York, mayor, said he has a fiscal budget that eliminated all the debt of New York City. This guy's amazing. He got the money from New York State. And his future plan, I used to have to make up budgets. And there'd be no way we'd hit those targets and do that. But you had to furnish a budget. And they're going around saying, look at that socialist. He solved New York's problems. You got to be kidding me, right? And they buy into this garbage. Now, 8 months from now, I want to see what happens. Hochul, what? Going to give New York City $4 billion? How is New York getting that money? New York is at a loss. Oh, they're going to float bonds. Guess who has to pay for those bonds? Taxpayers of New York. So Mamdani didn't solve anything. He just wrote numbers down on a piece of paper, and you know what I say about that? Figures always lie, and liars always figure. And that's how I'm going to end today's show. Please think about giving to a charity. I don't want to be talking about fraud in charities, but there are some very good charities out there. You should think about giving to them. But you contact those charities. You do your research on those charities. Don't become a victim helping a victim. Please think about giving to a local food bank. They always need help. And it can make you feel good. You did something, instead of, I'm eating and, someone else isn't. And you go, well, that's their own fault then. I get that. Drop off 6, 7 cans, 10 cans. You see these things all the time. But buy 2, get 2 free, You're going to buy it anyway. Get 2 of them and give it. Sack them up and then bring them over. And if you're so inclined, give a monetary donation so that food bank organization could help someone right then and there. And that's a wonderful thing. Say a prayer. Prayer does work, regardless of what a Democrat might tell you. This week I'm going to be changing some things. Well, next week. I'll be changing some format differences, mostly on my live feeds, not so much on my edited feed, which comes out later after I figure out all the things I said wrong or done, and then I put little things up over here saying, oh, I was wrong, I said this. But that's coming out this week. I'm going to try to work heavily this weekend, barring any big news or anything like that, which is always something coming up. But so there are changes coming. I'm going to be on more channels, not just YouTube, but now going full-time on Rumble, Facebook, and maybe to some extent X in some type of setting there. I'm going to start a channel on there called Trump World. Really, Trump World. And it's going to be everything that Trump is doing and things that you don't even know that he's doing. So, with that, I'm going to say later, everyone be safe. Tonight is Friday, May 22nd. Can't believe it's the 22nd already. And everyone be safe, be well, and I will be in touch later. We are now at 52 minutes with all my little ads, and here will be 52 minutes, 45 seconds. Everyone be safe as I fade to black.